Good morning. Okay, I am on Zoom coaching group clarity call for the month, and I wanted to hop on here live as well because I had somebody who was asking me about losing yourself as a mom, and this is something that I also experienced myself. I know that some people don't, but as I was like sitting here thinking about her question today and how we become parents and like the chain of events that kind of happen once we become a mom and how it compounds with everything that we have been taught growing up. I don't know why it was just flowing out of me. And I was like, I have to go live and talk about this too. But I had a mom ask me, how do you not lose yourself by being a mom? How can you actually have a life? I am a stay-at-home mom, and even though I have help with cooking, driving the kids around, laundry, I feel that I am still stuck at home tending to the kids' needs and I forget about me. And I want to speak to this a little bit because I think that this is super common. So I want you to know one, you are definitely not alone. And as I look back on my own journey, I realize I went from getting pregnant as a teenager, being told it was a sin next to murder from the religion that I was in, and having so much shame around it in the family, in the religion, in my friends. And I didn't I didn't know. I didn't know how to create a life that I wanted to live. And like looking back on it now, I can obviously see, wow, I was actually an adult. I was actually an adult. Yes, I was still a teenager. I had her when I was 19. But per society's standards, I was an adult. But per my religious standards, I wasn't married. So that was a sin next to murder. That's what the bishop told me. And I realized that I stepped into motherhood very riddled with shame. And I was told by someone very close to me that I needed to forget the dream life I wanted. I needed to forget my dreams and I needed to take care of everybody else now. And I believed him. I believed her. When she told me that, I believed her. And so as we start to have kids, so as we have our first, we have lack of sleep start to creep in. We have new schedules. We have the things that people are telling us. We have what society has told us. And we also have the conditioning that we grew up with. And so all of these things begin to compound. And as we step into survival mode, it starts this pattern of self abandonment. So it's like, okay, I need to take care of all of the needs of this new little baby. I need to be at its beck and call. I need to just that little peep, right? As soon as your baby starts crying, it's like we're on high alert. We're jumping in to figure out what this baby needs. And that is how it should be, right? That is how motherhood gets to be, is that we do need to tend for these babies' needs. We do need to tend to our kids' needs because they can't do it for themselves. But we also need to take care of our own needs as well. And I feel like this is where the pattern, as we step into this survival mode during this phase of life, if we don't have the help when we have a newborn, maybe you don't have a partner. I had a partner who didn't know how to help me. I thought that I was supposed to take care of it all on my own because that's what I was taught. And so we have the pattern of self abandonment that starts. And we also have something else that's going on. We lose our identity. Who were we before we had this little baby placed in our arms? That girl is gone. So now we're not only grieving this loss of a part of ourselves that we can never get back, but we're also living in survival mode. We're also tending to the cares and or to the needs of this baby and our partner. If you're like I was taking care of everything for him. I was taking care of everything for the kid. And we really get caught up in this whole pattern of this loss of identity and this not knowing anymore because everything just changed. And suddenly, some of the things that used to matter don't matter anymore. And now we're trying to navigate this whole way of being. And when are we going to take the time to sit down and figure that out, right? And so it's coming back to self. It is understanding that it's like, okay, what do I want? It can start as simple as that because when we continue this pattern of self-abandonment, here's where it leads. You, your hubby gets to continue to go back to work, continue to enjoy life, comes home and is the fun dad, maybe takes the baby and gives you a little break and whatever. But the resentment starts to creep in because now you're taking care of this little baby and you're taking care of your husband. And you go a few years in that pattern, maybe having another kid or two, and suddenly you have so much resentment towards your husband, and you're like, where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? This was my case. So I hit several years into our marriage. And I was like so resentful toward my husband. I was like, I am taking care of the house. I am taking care of the laundry, the food, the bills. I was making sure the bills were getting paid. And all he was doing was providing financially. And I don't want to say all he was doing because that really is like a huge benefit to the family, right? Um, but I was also working. So I was also providing financially, definitely not as much as my husband was, but I was providing financially and trying to do all of these other things. So of course the resentment is going to creep in. And if you are there, just know that this is completely normal. This is completely normal. The resentment will creep in. And then we hit this point where it's like, I can't continue to live life this way. For me, it was like this moment of sitting on the living room floor. And I remember I was just holding this baby and I had a toddler in my lap and she was crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is not the life I signed up for. This is not the life I signed up for. This can't be the rest of my life. And so then we start to experience, well, what do I want? And we get to kind of start asking ourselves, well, like, what do I want? And maybe we start to think about, okay, if I want to go out, if I just need a break. But then the mom guilt creeps in, like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't want to like have a break for my kids. I'm supposed to like love them and take care of them and do everything for them. And so then we start to like feel a little bit of guilt. And we've been in this pattern of putting everyone else first. And when we hit survival mode, we start to revert back to old patterns and conditionings that we learned in childhood. Or maybe they've continued to be your same pattern. For me, it was my same pattern. What I learned in my childhood to stay safe, right? To stay safe in my house. I was raised in a home with a lot of chaos, emotionally immature parents who really didn't know how to regulate their own emotions. So there was emotional abuse, there was physical abuse happening. And so that is the world that I was raised in. And so I was in a constant state of like overwhelm and frustration. And I was snapping at my kids and I was making these like offhanded, passive aggressive comments to my husband about him not helping. And it was really an unhealthy way of being. And the first thing that we get to do is just like recognize where we're at. And if this is you, knowing it's okay. I was there. So many women are there, and it can change. It can change. The beauty of life is that there is this duality. It can suck right now, and we can know that it can all change. It can all change. And so we start to buy into this belief as we've gone back into like these old patterns or conditionings or just continued, and it only gets like magnified when we have the kids, is we start to buy into this belief that we are no longer able to get we no longer get to have needs because we are taking care of others. That is our duty. That is our job. That is what I saw in my household, especially being raised by a single mom after she divorced my stepdad, was it was all on her shoulders. And that is what I was taught in the religion that I grew up in, is that the mom is the caretaker, the nurturer, the provider, and it is our job to multiply and replenish the earth. And I thought I was doing my duty, but then I did it all wrong because I got pregnant so young, and that was a sin next to murder. And now I'm starting motherhood and I'm in all this shame and thinking I can't have needs because I couldn't have needs as a child because they weren't met. And I never knew how the people were going to respond in my life. And so if I asked for too much, so then I started to make myself small. Do you see how this all cycles into patterns of motherhood and where we end up when we start having kids and we lose ourselves? I think we were already lost to begin with, and having kids magnifies it. Because for me, coming from the home that I came from, getting pregnant as a teenager, I never had time to navigate what I wanted in my life. I never had time to navigate what I wanted for myself. We have these big dreams and goals. I always knew I was going to be a business owner. I always knew I wanted to make a lot of money. But then the baby comes along and the survival mode creeps in. And oh, we have to go back to taking care of everybody else because that's what we were taught. That was the conditioning we were raised with. And now we're creating the same chaos within our home that we were raised in because it's familiar. And if you think about the brain, familiar equals safe. Familiar equals safe. And so we start creating the same patterns, and we are the ones who get lost in the process. And how do we come back? How do we come back? Boundaries. I love boundaries. Boundaries are the foundation for everything in your life. This is how, when I started to build my business, I didn't necessarily realize what I was doing until I started putting things in place. And then I didn't really realize I was setting boundaries. I didn't recognize them necessarily as boundaries in the beginning until now. I've done all of this work in therapy, especially around setting boundaries. And when we start to set boundaries in our lives, that is what protects our own inner peace. Because up until that point, we were living by the expectations of others. We were living by the expectations of what we were raised with. We were living by the expectations of what our parents have told us. We were living by the expectations of what religion has taught us. We were living like however you were raised, right? Fill in your own blank. You were living that. And now you are stepping out of that box and you are recognizing this way of being, this way of living doesn't feel good to me. I want a sense of self because you are not just a mom. You are not just a mom. You are a mom and you are a woman. You have chosen to be a mom or didn't choose. I didn't choose at that time. I knew I wanted kids in the future. Life happened, choices happened. And so I just want you to know, as you start to put boundaries in place, this is when things start to get really good because boundaries are an act of love. I had a coach tell me this once. And it is because we are not only protecting ourselves and our own inner peace, but we are teaching other people how to treat us. And it is very dysfunctional. It is very unhealthy if you are letting other people walk all over you and allowing them to feel like that's okay. So we want to start to bring in this sense of like inner peace for ourselves because you deserve to have that. And you do not deserve to hear somebody tell you you're doing it all wrong. You don't get to show up this way. Why are you living life this way? You're going to mess up your kids. No. If it feels good for you, you get to learn to come back to you. You get to learn to listen to you. And the thing about it is, as we start to put boundaries in place, this is where the breath work comes in. Breath work and boundaries are like two things that I freaking love. This is what I coach most moms on. But as we start to put boundaries in place, it's really simple. Maybe it's simple for me because I can hop on a call with you and I can talk about your life and I can be like, we need a boundary here, we need a boundary here, we need a boundary here. So it might be simple to see the places that we need to put a boundary, but it's not always simple to uphold the boundary. And so I want you to really think about that because, yeah, we can tell somebody, hey, I'm actually no longer available to be talked to that way. But this person is either one, going to have their own reaction to you, or two, well, they're just going to be pissed off and they're going to continue to push on that boundary. So how do we uphold this boundary? Because right now, I want you to think of yourself as like this wee little flower that just got planted in some fresh soil. They're not very strong at that point, right? So we're not going to be very strong because we just got planted. We just got planted into the boundary world. And now we have to uphold this boundary that we want to set. And our nervous system is going to be like, oh, hell no, we can't do that. So we have to create safety within the nervous system around setting boundaries so that you can not only set them, but you can uphold them. And so this is the piece where these both come into play is We set the boundary, we uphold the boundary. The logical side of us, the mindset part of us, can be able to pinpoint where we need to put boundaries in our life, and it can logically know how to have that conversation. The breath work is the piece that we feel really good in our decisions because we can shift that identity from within, but we can also calm our nervous system in relation to that fear of how somebody else is going to react to us, or that fear of now having to uphold this, and we don't feel very strong. We feel like this little flower that just got planted in this boundary world. And so the breath work starts to allow us to identify as someone who easily puts boundaries in place. It helps you walk through and regulate your nervous system around setting those boundaries and upholding those boundaries. Because if it doesn't feel safe in your nervous system, you're not going to be able to do it. And so, this is why I always say you cannot mindset your way into a life that you love, because that's only one piece of the puzzle. If your nervous system doesn't feel good, it doesn't matter how much mindset work you do, you're not going to get where you want to go in life, in business, in anything. You can't mindset your way there. You have to get the body on board, because remember, the body remembers past experiences, and the body likes familiarity too, just like the brain. Brain and the body are connected. They are one. They are one. They run together. Your nervous system runs your entire body, muscles, everything. And so we want to shift the identity from within into a woman who easily puts boundaries in place to protect herself. We want to set boundaries and shift that identity into someone who knows what she wants. We get to start to dive back into that. What do you want? What needs do you have? How can you get those needs met? And so this is what I do. This is what I wanted to hop on here and I was just dying to talk about today. And I do have a boundaries course and I am launching it for an incredible deal. It is $97 right now. If this is something that interests you, drop boundary masterclass, not boundary masterclass. Holy cow. Boundary mastery. Drop boundary mastery below. I will send you the link to register, and you also get a 2-week trial into the Breathwork membership. And not only do you get that, once you get into the course, you get the Breathwork Collective membership for 50% off. It's normally $48 a month. You get it for $24. You can save some money if you want and get 2 months free, but I'm not going to go into all the logistics of that. Just drop Boundary Mastery below if you want the link to the course. And let's start now. That is the biggest thing, is a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to wait until the new year. And it's like, what if we get some boundaries in place so that you can show up for your Christmas parties this year feeling more regulated, feeling more internal peace, and knowing who you are as a person, not just a mom, but as a person. Maybe you want to shift some things. Maybe your mom always makes comments about something and you're tired of it. Or maybe you have a sister that like triggers the shit out of you and you're like, I just want to be able to show up and just like let that roll off my shoulder this year. I can help you do that. We do this by setting boundaries and shifting our identity through the breath work. You will get both leading up to Christmas. We still have like 2 weeks before Christmas, right? Yeah, 12 days. 12 days, if my math is correct. If my math is math and here live. But I just want you to know, we don't wait. We don't wait. Moms like you don't wait. You are like, I am ready to make changes now. And if you're here, you have been on a journey. You have been trying things. So let's create the results that we want so that you can step into Christmas this year feeling really good and a lot more inner peace and a lot less triggering and activation and reacting to life. And that is what this will do for you. So drop Boundary Mastery below. Thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you next time.